Look at number 3. You know what? You've hit 3 of the 5 R's by simply looking at the first 3 chapters of Genesis. What happens in the 3rd chapter of Genesis? Well, it's right here. Look at the very bottom on your sheet here. See where it says God's problem? God's got a problem on his hands. Okay? And it's not called we need to go to heaven. I'm not anti-heaven. I have nothing against heaven. When I die, I want to go to heaven, okay? Don't think I'm anti-heaven. But I am claiming in this book that it is not the goal of God and never has been. I keep looking for a verse that says, Jesus came so when I died, I will go to heaven. It doesn't say that. It says, Jesus came to earth in 2 Peter so I would be reconciled to God. Because I didn't lose heaven when number 3 happened, when the rebellion came. So let's take a look at number 3 first. God's problem. Does God have a problem on his hands? If so, what is it? And look at the very bottom there. It's called, you see the 3rd R? What's it say? Spiritual what? Rebellion. Does anybody want to guess, according to Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, on the next page as you flip this over, where this rebellion began? Where? Huh? No. Where did it begin? Where did it start? It started in heaven. That's what Isaiah 14 says. Who started it? Okay, we know who started it, this rebellious angel. But where? So here we have Isaiah 14. Look, how you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how you've been cut down to the ground. You weaken the nations, for you've said in your heart, listen to this, this is the 5 I wills. You want rebellion, or you want a definition of rebellion? Underline this. I will ascend into heaven, right here, underline this. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. This is an angel speaking, folks.
Excuse me, where are you at?
Okay, this is the first page on this handout, and then we have flipped it, and we're now back on these 2 citations here, Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, okay? All right, and so we're right now on Isaiah 14, about three lines down. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit in the mount of the congregation on the far sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. Here you go, underline this. I will be like the Most High. Notice he does not say in union or dwelling with. He says, I will be like the Most High. Okay, so we have a power trip here. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, which in Hebrew is the depths, down to the lowest depths of the pit. Those who will gaze at you and consider you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook kingdoms, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities? Lucifer. Look to the top line. How you've fallen from heaven. I thought if we died and went to heaven, that fixed everything. If a place is the goal, when you get to the place, doesn't that fix everything? And now you're telling me the problem that God has on his hands began in heaven. I got a better one for you. Let's look at Ezekiel 28 right below it. Let's see how close to the throne he actually was. Check this out. You were the anointed cherub who covers. How many of you have seen pictures of the Ark of the Covenant and then the mercy seat that sits on top of the Ark? You seen that? Okay. Seen the two cherubim with their wings covering? That's right in the center of the mercy seat where God's presence is going to be. All right? I think he was one of the 2. Check it out. You were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created until iniquity was found in you. Okay, by the abundance of your trading, you became filled with violence within. You sinned, therefore I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of God, and I destroyed you, O covering cherub. There it is a second time. From the midst of the fiery stones, your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. You cast you to the ground, laid you before kings, that they might gaze at you. You defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities. By the iniquity of your trading, therefore I have brought fire in your midst. It devoured you, and I turned you into ashes upon the earth in the sight of all who saw you. All who knew you among the peoples are astonished at you. You have become a whore and shall be no more forever. Okay, so obviously this covers different time zones, okay? Now, so not only do we have a rebellion that began in heaven, but it began near the throne where the presence of God actually was. The reason I'm pointing this out is to say the goal of the Christian's redemption is not relocation from going point A to point B. It doesn't fix anything, because this is what I told the prisoners. I said, when you guys are in jail and you get your sentences and you get all shipped over to state prison, you're convicted felons of whatever felony it was, because that's why you're going to state prison. If you were a misdemeanor, you'd get out of jail in 12 months or less. But if you're a convicted felon, you're going to do over 12 months, fine, you're going to state prison. Let's say you all get on the bus and you get on to George Bailey Detention Facility, and right down the road is Donovan. That's a state prison. Has anything changed? You've relocated from George Bailey, point A, and now you've relocated over to point B, Donovan, which is maybe a half a mile down the road. You're a convicted felon. Has anything changed? Has your character changed? Has your nature changed? Has your outlook changed? Has your personality changed? What we're going to see in this class is that we've been sold a Greek linear bill of goods based on a guy named Plato and a guy named Aristotle and a guy named Socrates, who through their philosophies and through their religious beliefs overtook the Hebrew outline and the Hebrew construct of this book. Because let's face it, folks, after the second temple was destroyed by Titus, that's called the diaspora, when the Jews were spread out all over the earth, and something had to take its place. Nature abhors a vacuum. And it was Western culture, Greek influence. And I did a lot of research on how much anti-Semitism and how much anti-Hebrew sentiment there was in the Roman Empire. And then after that, in the European, and if you want, even Martin Luther, our Protestant, hero, who cleaned up all the stuff in the Catholic Church with all that indulgence stuff. And he was very anti-Semitic. And this stuff blew me away. You know what I was taught by the nuns and the priests? The Jews are Christ killers. There's no hope for them. But they didn't tell us about Romans 9 and chapter 10, chapter 11. They didn't tell us about those because we didn't study the scripture that much. And the gospel is to the Jew first. And we are the adopted kids. That doesn't mean we're second-class citizens, but we have to understand his design, his construct, his foundation is every bit Hebrew. And for us to try to put a tent on top of that, or some sort of, what are those bouncing things that you see at McDonald's when the kids, to blow up whatever type of thing we want to do on top of the foundation doesn't change the foundation. And what, unfortunately, the Greek linear influence has done through the influences of Plato, influences of Aristotle and Socrates, it's basically totally distorted and perverted the Hebrew notion of what this is all about. It's a Hebrew story, and we get to be part of it. We are part of it. We are an essential part of it. We are an integral part of it, okay?